Hello, everybody, and welcome to Conservatish, episode 251. My name is Peter Feliciano. Wherever you're listening or watching or streaming, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like the video, make sure you comment and share it because that helps the algorithm. You can find me on Instagram at Peter_Feliciano. You can find me on Twitter at Rule62Peter, and you can support my podcast and my music. And there is more music coming soon at patreon.com/conservatish. Ladies and gentlemen, the wonderful Dr. Danielle Roberts. Yay. Thank you very much for joining me. First things first, where can people find you?
Well, they can actually find me at 3 places. The most recent place is stexy.fit, and you can find me also on Instagram there at stexy.fit as well, and drdanielleroberts.com. And the last place is sensia.com, and that's SENCIA.
Okay.
Yes.
Sounds like Splenda. Where can you and I have been talking for a little while about what to talk about. I'm excited to have this conversation. We've been working on this. And one of the main things that I always talk about on the show is that if we're going to keep our heads in the, like for me anyway, I mean, you do talk about it. You go live stream and you talk about freedom and you talk about liberty and whatever. And everybody has their special focus, and your special focus is to do with the body. Your special focus is to do with health, and that's an important element. And I like bringing on a bunch of different, my last guest was a OnlyFans libertarian, so everybody's a little different.
Yeah.
But and then sometimes I'll have comedians and musicians and people from, a lot of activists, a lot of boring activists. But I wanted to talk to you because it's something that we don't necessarily talk in the movement, and it's a broad term, and maybe that is in need of a little bit of rebranding. But I think the term, if you would have to, is liberty or freedom or anti-government or that sort of fun shit. We don't talk about health very frequently. We do not talk about how to take care of our bodies very frequently. We don't, and not just our bodies, but our spirits. I posted earlier today. I was like, I just hopped online and, before I meditated, not the greatest, practice I find. And it was just like, the world is this, and this person's being arrested, and da. And I was just like, wait a second, let me meditate. And then a thought popped in my head because I do gratitude lists sometimes. It's just like, let me just pop on a gratitude list and see if anyone else wants to join in and just list 5 things that I'm grateful for. It's corny. I get it, everybody. I get it. I understand. But at the same time, little perspective shifts need to happen on a micro level, and therefore that affects the macro. And even little things like, oh, I'm grateful for this, or I'm grateful for that, or whatever, it shifts and it's like, oh, things are good in my life. Things are probably not, it's not the end of the world. And I need to keep my spirit and my body okay if I'm even going to be an effective leader or fighter in the game, and if I'm going to keep my head. So I appreciate your work because you're someone who talks a lot about health and the body and the spirit and, relationships and relationship with self and things like that. So anyway, that's all just to say thank you.
Yeah. My pleasure. My pleasure. No, and thank you for your work as well. I mean, I think especially with the recent events in my life, I think I've experienced that they're intimately intertwined. In order for, obviously, my career and my life has been focused at learning the body, how it works, helping people stay well, helping people stay centered. But I've, recently been experiencing what that means to be able to continue to fight for what you think is right, especially amidst a tremendous amount of adversity or hate or things like that. And I think COVID this year was a huge example of how important it is to really stay centered and learn how to take autonomy or control over your own health and well-being, think for yourself, critically ask questions, and kind of find your own way along this path. So I appreciate your work very much.
Yeah, I'm awesome. What was your experience? When did you go, as far as, well, let's see, because I remember you talking about it a little bit, but I want to illuminate that to my fans and followers and listeners. Your journey in health, where did it start?
Well, I guess, I mean, as everybody's probably does at the beginning, but I did start doing gymnastics when I was 5 years old,
Hmm.
and I did that until I was 13. So it's a very demanding sport. It's a very, you use every fiber in your body, every part of your body to do that. And I think that is my foundation of fitness, well-being, starting to understand how this body suit works, so to speak. And then I went on to do personal training, aerobics, go to medical school, and continue to take programs to kind of debunk and understand how all of this works. But
Right, right. So it was when you were a teen and beforehand.
mhm.
How deep along that line did you start thinking, oh, I think I want to do health. I think I want to go to medical school.
There were a few key events in my life that started to steer me in that direction. I think there's a combination of a few, but I think one really deep experience or important experience to me was that there were people that were very close to me, people in my family that struggled with addiction. And I also, at about age 13, started to struggle with food compulsion and addiction and things like that. So I started to kind of delve in and explore the relationship between emotions, or thoughts and belief systems, emotions, and our physical behavior. And I think that's really where I started to learn a lot as I overcame my own compulsions. I really started to learn how to sit with emotions, how to be with sensations, how to not cover everything that's coming your way, and be able to face reality and continue to do things in a different way. So that was a key experience. I really wanted to learn how to help my family members and help myself. And as I did, I discovered more and more the intimacy between the mind, the emotions, our behavior, and how our behavior shapes our well-being, our nutritional patterns, our exercise habits, all of those things. Um, I think a few of the other things were, I had, I competed to a national level in gymnastics, and I had injuries. I started to have like stress fractures and ankle sprains and things like that. And I got to experience physical therapy. I went, in the midst of that process, I went to a great physical therapist, and I started to experience what it was like to not be able to do what you love, and then have somebody come help you be able to do the thing you love again. And I was very moved by that. I thought, if I can't do this gymnastics thing, well, maybe I can help people do what they love. And I think that continued my curiosity. And I studied psychobiology in college, so the connection between the mind and the body, and then went on to do more. But I think those were two primary experiences that kind of motivated me to understand how this works and then be able to help other people
Hmm.
do better, experience more.
Right. Um, so into the medical school game, how soon did it feel like, yep, this is right, yep, this is right, yep, this is right? Did you start to question things right away, or did you? I mean, obviously because I do want to set up the not the ground rules. I do want to set up the reality that you have your degree and you have this experience doing allopathic. Is that how they call it?
Yeah. Yeah, like your
Um,
MD degree is allopathic medicine, so to speak. And then there's osteopathic medicine, which is still conventional medicine, but you also learn how to manipulate the body. So kind of like chiropractic.
mm,
But the main tenet is that the body heals itself. We just set up the environment for it to do so. But the medical education is very similar. And a lot of people go to DO school either because they struggle to get into allopathic school, or because for whatever reason they don't necessarily practice it. They don't practice the philosophy or the body work, which I think are two of the most important aspects of osteopathic medicine.
Okay. And so I guess, did you start to feel while you were in class like, this is, or were you just so thwacked and busy that you didn't have time to question things?
I'm laughing because I questioned way before. I went knowing.
Oh, really?
I went knowing it wasn't what it wasn't everything that I would have hoped conventional medicine would be, and I wanted to be a naturopath actually. I went to, like I said, I did my undergrad in psychobiology to understand the mind body connection. And my experience with my body was much more that our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions, and our behaviors, our choices dictate the way our health, the outcome of our health, so to speak, the vitality we experience and the way our body works. And I really gained a lot of that knowledge, like I said, through overcoming my struggles, my eating disorder, my injuries. And I had a really strong conviction that, where um, it's really important for us to look at what we're putting in our body, how that affects our body, how that feels. I did some meditation work in Tai Chi before I ever went to medical school. And I really wanted to become a naturopath. So I went to Arizona. I got into, there's only a few naturopathic schools in the country. So I went there and I went to the one in Portland and got in. But I decided actually to go to conventional medical school despite getting into naturopathic school because you're not licensed. You can't be licensed in New York. And my people, my family, were in New York, and I wanted the freedom to be able to practice anywhere in the country that I wanted to. Kind of the irony. So, in some ways, I went to medical school to get the credentials, and I told myself, or the reason I went was, well, once I have the credibility and people see that I'm still choosing to practice in a certain way, they'll kind of go, well, wait a second. She can prescribe all these medications. She did all the work, and she's still choosing to do these things. Why? Um, and along the way, I learned pros and cons of both. Certainly, conventional medicine, I think, has a lot to offer, and there's a lot of things. I always say, if I get in a car accident, don't stick acupuncture needles in me. Definitely take me to the hospital.
Mhm.
There's definitely an important place to put out fires and things like that. But in terms of getting to the cause of chronic disease or getting to the cause of an illness, conventional medicine fails fails miserably. And I think that's really where I've dedicated my time, my life force, is to teaching people how to get to the cause of what's going on, be it a belief, an emotional issue, a physical behavior, so that they can learn how to transform their health and well-being.
Right. Or even a gut thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot, I have a friend, I wish I knew more about what she's doing, but her whole field of study, she's a scientist, her whole field of study is the gut biome and how it connects and how it affects this thing in our heads.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
so, okay, so you went to school already rebellious, already, already a little, I'm gonna get this, just so I could, because that's kind of, in a way, that's kind of why I read so much history. I love history, but
Hmm.
a part of me is like, all right, I'm like building this, this utility belt filled with facts and figures of ways that bolster my anti-government, talking. You understand what I mean? Like, I'm like, okay, to see how nuanced things are and to see how complicated humans are and how horrendous and how fantastic and how whatever. So maybe you went to medical school. It sounds like you went to medical school in a way, maybe not as subversive as I am, but like, in a way of like, okay, I'm going to have my utility belt filled with the papers that I need, the degrees that I need, the authority to prescribe, the authority to whatever. But then my focus is going to go that way. Now, when you got that, how soon, what was your journey post medical school?
Well, There's medical school and then there's residency. So I did medical school at New York College of Osteopathic Medicine, which, like I said, was wonderful. I actually was pleasantly surprised at all the tools I learned to be able to work with the body with my hands. The craniosacral mechanism. I continue to do Reiki and energy work. So the sensitivity and also Tai Chi and things like that. So my sensitivity got much better. Um, there was a point where I started to feel what was going on in other people's bodies in my body, and I was like, "Oh shoot, what do I do with this?" you know. But the gift of learning how to work with my hands and creating sensitivity and working with all of those things from the lymphatic drainage system to like I said, the cranial sacral mechanism, the bones, the muscle tissue, all of that stuff, just gave me so many more tools to be able to help people without medication.
Hmm.
Simple example, sinus infection, right? We just talked about this. You have a sinus infection, usually you go to the doctor, they give you a prescription that affects your gut. Most sinus infections are a lot of them are even fungal, and they're giving you an antibiotic, which continues to destroy your microbiome and actually can cause further infections in the future. If they give you an antifungal, which is closer maybe to what might be going on, it's still, you're just giving a medication, and it may be necessary, but there's also a bunch of things you can do to get the sinuses to open and drain just by manipulating the cranial bones, helping the sinuses to drain, starting to open up the thoracic ducts where the lymphatics drain into. There's a bunch of different things. Yeah, there's a bunch of different things you can do manually to help someone feel better. And then I use essential oils, which are the immune systems of plants that don't necessarily damage the gut's microbiome, and you can still boost your immune system or help yourself protect yourself. Of course, dietary changes, vitamin D, detoxification, all of those things. But you can give someone a tool outside of just decongestant, medication, more toxins. You can help them learn how to work with their body in a way that allows the body to drain and detoxify and doesn't just dry up the sinuses and push everything back into the body. If that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah, it does. Just as a side note, be careful with your microphone.
Microphone.
Yeah, it's been uh,
Got it.
scratching. Perfect, wonderful. Um, so okay, so you're learning all these things. You're getting into this. Um, did you ever start to intern? Was that ever a goal
Yes.
for you?
Yes. Well, after medical school, you do residency. So I did my residency in family practice because I wanted to work with everyone from pediatrics to older adults to pregnant women. That was important to me. And I had the privilege of kind of being able to tailor my residency a little bit, which was great. So, for instance, instead of just doing a regular OBGYN rotation in the hospital, which I did do, I took half of my OBGYN and I did it with midwives, and I did home births at home, and I got to deliver babies at home, and I got to see that process.
Mm,
Okay, so what's the difference between having women deliver laying on their back, IV in their arm, pain medication, feet in the air, versus no pain medication, naturally with their partner, standing, bearing down in a different position? It's very, very different as compared to the kind of controlled and contrived environment conventional medicine does things in. So I got to really compare and contrast, and I got to customize my
mhm,
residency a little bit.
mhm,
I
mhm.
worked with a pediatrician who worked a lot with vaccine injury, and had a very different perspective on vaccines than conventional medical school does. So I really tried to give myself a three-dimensional, four-dimensional perspective of the body and medicine instead of just buying into what was being fed to me in my schooling.
Right. Can I, because there's a lot of different directions I want to go with that. Um, First things first, do you feel like, because I feel like there's many different reasons, many different intentions behind the fight that we have. Sometimes it's malevolence, sometimes it's ineptitude, sometimes it's stagnation caused by fear and busyness. There's a lot of different reasons. What do you feel when were in touch with these doctors and these teachers and these professors and these all these people? I'm probably correct in assuming that you never thought that there was malevolence behind it, right? That these doctors maybe were trying their best to teach what had already been taught to them. But maybe it was laziness. Maybe it was. What are your thoughts as far as, like I said, it's a very complicated thing to piece apart. But what do you feel like it more was when you would be at these colleges and in these classrooms and in these, in these doctors' offices and just hearing the most asinine stuff?
Such a great question. I love this question. There's so many thoughts I have right now. um, I don't think malevolence, at the core of all of humanity, I will say, I do think at the core of humanity, I think we're all good.
Hmm.
I think we get scared and I think we do things out of fear that are not good. But I think there's a combination of a bunch of things that I've seen on my journey. And one is I think it's really comfortable to be told what to do. I think it's really comfortable to think that somebody else has all the answers and is teaching you all of the answers, and that if you just follow in between the lines, that you'll be okay. I find people like to stay there and not necessarily venture out into questioning what's being told to them. It takes more responsibility. It takes more courage. If you do something wrong, it's your ass, not their ass. So I think one is just fear of taking on the responsibility of truly evaluating and truly asking questions. Um, Unfortunately, I think another is profit. I think we do have attachments as human beings. We like money, we like material things, we like to feel safe, we like to be cozy, and I think those things skew our perception often. There's To me, there is a bit of a triangle between like the nutrition that goes out into the world, like General Mills and the dairy product, all of the things that are marketed to our children in cereals and foods and McDonald's and all of those things, as well as then the pharmaceutical companies. And the pharmaceutical companies want to make money. And essentially, they don't make money by getting people well, and they don't make money by people dying, but they do make money if people are sick. And, there's a nice little homeostatic balance in there. And then there's the doctors that are kind of stuck in the middle, right? They're getting smushed by the insurance companies. They have less and less reimbursement. The insurance companies are telling them what tests they can do and not do. So they're losing autonomy to be able to think critically, to be able to do what they would do with their patients. And they kind of have less time to do more stuff or deal with more chronic disease. And really, what it takes for a patient to get better is hard work and consistency. They need a coach in exercise. They need a coach in nutrition. They need to detoxify. They need things to address the cause, and doctors being controlled by the insurance companies, being educated by the pharmaceutical companies. They're doing things for reimbursement. They're doing things for money. They're not necessarily doing things to get people well. But for them, I don't think it's malevolent. I think it's just they've been tasked with a job. They're barely, they've paid $400,000 to go to school. They're worrying about paying their bills. They want people to feel better, but they feel, I think, strapped on all ends as to how to best take care of patients. And I think it's an unfortunate kind of negative feedback loop that we've got going on, that unless you step out of that system, you're kind of stuck in that system. I mean, the first practice I ever opened out of residency was a cash-based business. We didn't accept insurance. I didn't have insurance for myself either, because I said, well, if I'm not accepting insurance from my patients, I certainly have to walk the walk. And what we taught people was how to put a wellness account aside, how to put money into that wellness account so they could take care of themselves proactively instead of waiting until they got sick. And then we took an hour and 15 minutes on our initial interviews. We took,
Mhm.
we did follow-ups with them. We did coaching. They had support to change their life. And it was tough because now I'm running a business and I'm trying to get people well. And you need clients who are going to pay for their well-being, not just, well, I have insurance. Why am I going to pay out of pocket to take care of myself? There's another level of responsibility that you're contending with, right? You need to, kind of let people see, well, if you invest now, you're going to save so much more money than paying for cancer and medications and surgeries and time off work and a miserable existence. You have to show them that that investment is worth it.
Mm.
But it's tough. I don't think it's malevolent, but I do think there are profits that are driving things, especially when it comes to the pharmaceutical companies. I think it reached an all-time high with COVID. I think the vaccines and the things that the pharmaceutical companies unfortunately can make money off of have definitely influenced what is being sold to the public, told to the public, marketed, commercials, all of that other stuff. And I think that's very unfortunate because I think it has very bad effects.
All right. Beautifully said. I also want to add in a couple of different things. You were talking about, I love, by the way, that my New York accent is coming back by talking to you. Anytime I talk to a New Yorker, I'm like, you were talking about, I got to
It's
put on
important.
my,
Hold on to that.
I got to put on my Timberlands. Um, so a couple of things, along with that, through my experience in many different ways, but especially in the certain spiritual groups that I'm a part of, I make it a point to understand human behavior. And that comes from understanding yourself. You know, when you deep dive into the humanity that you have and all your mistakes and all your flaws and all your great things and all your whatever, you can see it more easily in the outside world.
Amen.
And when people don't do that, when people are too busy or too lazy or have never been shown how to look at themselves deeply, that's when you get, oh, they just hate America, or oh, they just are snowflakes, or oh, they're all racists. Imagine, everybody, if you just either paid 4 years, 7 years of your life to become this person. Other people's lives are literally in your hands. The decisions you make, the scripts you write, the whatever can kill people.
Yep.
You're probably going to naturally look for the smoothest way to operate in those boundaries. And if you're told here's the panacea, if you're told here's the right thing to do, if you're told problem solution, problem solution, problem solution, oh, it must be pills, it must be, science, we're so evolved. You're going to probably latch on to that more easily because, like you said, similarly, the responsibility is not on me. It's on Pfizer, it's on the doctor who trained me, it's on this, it's on the whatever.
Well, and in fact, just one, I'll make sure we
Please.
come right back to your point. But in
No, no.
fact, if they don't follow the protocol that Pfizer or the hospital puts for them, like patient needs high blood pressure medication, patient needs cholesterol medication. If they don't put that medicine on, they can be dinged. Like they have a responsibility for not controlling the cholesterol level or the blood pressure. And of course, if it's ridiculously high, you need to control that. But they're not thinking about what caused the high cholesterol. They're thinking about, okay, cholesterol causes strokes. I need to prevent strokes. I need to control cholesterol to prevent strokes. They're not thinking, okay, what does cholesterol do in the body? What is it good for? The body has it for some reason. It clearly made it for some reason. So there's positives and there's negatives. Okay, what's the negative? So the negative is when it sticks to the arteries. Okay, well, when does it stick to the arteries? Only when the body's inflamed. Okay, what causes inflammation? Sugar, alcohol, toxins. Okay, so wait, maybe cholesterol is not the problem. Maybe it's the thing that are inflaming our arteries and causing the cholesterol to stick to our arteries. So it's a lack of thought process, but they also in the system we have, again, well, cholesterol is too high. It's going to cause a stroke. Okay, got to put cholesterol medication. Check the box. If they don't check the box, they're getting in trouble from the hospital, from insurance companies, from they're going to get sued. They did the wrong thing. I mean, these are the protocols that are in place, and if they don't follow those, they get sued. I could never follow cover your ass medicine. I just cared about humans too much. But I mean, that's literally what it's called. What did I say? Cover your ass medicine, not follow your ass medicine, if that's what I said. But cover your
Mhm.
ass medicine is a term that's well known by doctors, amongst doctors, so to speak.
Right. So the consequences, not just the potentiality of being sued, but also you're saying from insurance companies, they can get in trouble?
Well, they won't get reimbursement.
Ah, okay. All right.
Yeah, they won't
So,
get reimbursement.
right. Creepy. Okay. Um, God, I like my show. Anyway, so, all right. So, because it's almost like I get to do, instead of just doing the research, me and out in safari, it's like, oh, it comes right to me. Okay, fantastic. And I get to share that with other people in an entertaining way. Everybody subscribe. So, okay. So you have the experience of looking at that. The other thing is when it came to, I got to throw in a little bit, because again, it's too intellectually lazy to just say they're all a part of the cabal. Nah, bro. There's only like, a couple thousand who are part of the cabal. Most of the people, even if they have that little side note, that little subconscious, yay, money, that desire for profit, a lot of them, I also think during the COVID thing, were terrified, right? Do you think there's an element of like, oh God, there's this thing that's killing lots of people. I just got to tell everybody to, mask up and do this and do that and stay away from me. And then, blah, 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 ventilator, not ventilator, vaccine, blah, blah, blah. Do you feel like an element of it was fear?
Oh my God, 100%. 100%. I mean, like I said, I really like to assume that everyone is good, and I do think that if anything, we get a little lazy and we don't question, but the fear on top of it, you gotta remember the physiology of fear too. You have conventional media pumping through the media waves, "Oh my god, death rates are higher than they've ever been. Oh my god, this and that. Oh my god, they're carrying bodies out. Oh my god, we're overwhelmed. Oh my god, blah, blah, blah." And it's not that people weren't dying. They were, but the fear does not help us evaluate what the best way to deal with that is. And it also shrinks your hippocampus. Like if you stay in a fear state, literally physiologic changes happen where you can't critically think as well. You can't access your creative states as well. You can't be present to deal with things properly that you want to be able to deal with. So now you have a whole was gonna say species. You have a whole species that is just reactive. They're like little
Mhm,
ping pong balls, like not
mhm.
thinking, just like can't must wear mask, what must do this, must do that, instead of like, wait a second, wait. Okay, people are dying, but people die every day in car accidents. Okay, people are dying, but people die, there's a whole bunch of things that cause death. Granted, we wanna minimize it, but if we isolate people, if we mask people, does that actually help improve their well-being?
Or
Does that
does it cause more death?
exactly. Does it exactly. Are people dying? Is there more domestic violence? Is there more depression? Is there more
Suicide,
suicide? Exactly. There's a whole bunch of
drug
other factors.
overdoses.
Mhm. Mhm. 100%.
And also, by the way, the individual risks that adults are willing to make when it comes to seeing their grandfather for the last time.
Yes. I mean, free will, the most beautiful gift we have as human beings is the fact that we get to choose. And that's really where my beef comes in with the government or mandates or things like that, is that I don't know very many human beings that agree on everything. We have totally differing life experiences. We have all sorts of things that influence us. But we have the right, I believe we should have the right to be able to choose how we live those lives. Now, granted, I'm much more in support of the government having less control and us taking more autonomy, more responsibility. And there may be more, a little more chaos. There may be a little more mistakes in the beginning, but I think we learn that way.
Mhm,
I think the more the government takes control, the less freedom we have, and also the
mhm,
less we learn. Um, but that being said, we also have, I mean, if the government takes control and decides that they're gonna force us to do certain things, we also have a choice. There's a lot of people that didn't wanna lose their jobs and went along with it and didn't stand up against it because they wanted to keep their job,
right.
and some people decided, "You know what? This is not okay. I'm leaving my job. We're not doing this. This is not okay." But we all have to find our line. We all have to find what we're willing to stand for when we see the consequences. I think think the hardest part is that people delete things and don't want to see because they're afraid to leave their job. They're afraid to stand up for what they think is really right. So they start line bending to uh to not see reality the way that it is.
I think part of the line bending is the unrealistic expectation, the screwed up definitions. Here's an example. I've known, a couple of different people. Most of the people I know, someone, as an example, I look up to him a lot. He's a great dude. We're good friends, been good friends for at least like 7 years. Real spiritual motherfucker, just real whatever. And most of the time I talk to him, he's, we've got a problem here. He's like, oh, I'm dealing with this. And I'm like, yeah, I'm dealing with this, blah, blah, blah. And he changes careers like every couple years, right? And yet he's one of the most successful motherfuckers I know.
Yep.
Just good fucking house in San Francisco, overlooking a park, like rich motherfucker, right? Why is he switching careers all the time? But like, I have to keep my job and I'm willing to my little piddly whatever, or not piddly everybody, but I have to keep my job and I'm willing to make this exception. I'm willing to take this vaccine. I'm willing to, I just become smaller and smaller and smaller because I
Yeah.
can't leave my career. I can't leave it. So our definitions, our expectations of what success looks like. Besides the fact, I know it's flowery, but like I could die right now, right now. And I'd rather, I have to have the piece of paper that says that I have this job for a certain amount of time. Okay, keep your job. You get the vaccine and then you die in a car accident on the way home from Walgreens. Bruh. Besides the fact of what are the unintended emotional, spiritual, and therefore physical consequences of making yourself smaller, of making yourself of taking this thing that is not right, of making these concessions. And so I decided years ago, and I've been practicing that muscle over and over, and it's just like anything whatever, everybody, you get good at whatever you practice.
Yes.
All right. You get good at whatever you practice. Oh, why am I not as good as that person at lifting weights? Just lift more weights. Like you have to make incremental. So when it comes to individual freedom, I've been practicing that muscle and just be like, nope, nope, nope. I just love saying no. Nope, 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 nope. And I say yes to a ton of stuff. But sometimes it comes from life, good God, and sometimes it comes from peeps. I've learned how to discern that. So anyway, I went off on a tangent, but I think we're talking about specifically the expectations and our definitions and how we got into this mess and how doctors got into that mess. My biggest issue now is not, oh my God, look at all these doctors who made these mistakes. My issue now is, can you at least publicly confirm that you made the mistake? Right. Can you look back and go, you know what, guys, wasn't the greatest decision. Sorry about that. Can you be human? Yeah. They can't. And again, I think that's an extension of fear. Again, I think that's an extension of profit. Again, I think that's an extension of even just being, keeping up with the woke Joneses, virtue signaling that you're one of the good guys. But this idea that, I mean, that's part of the reason I talk about sometimes, but I've been reading this book called About Face. And it's a soldier's memoir, essentially. And this guy was in Korea and he was in Vietnam and he was up to a colonel, and he talks about like all the little intricacies. I mean, it's a 35-hour book. It's a very long book. And he talks about one of the reasons why Vietnam happened is because you had to have a zero defect war, a zero defect army. Because the person that you were beholden to, even if you made a mistake out on the field, even if you couldn't say that to the person who was managing you, to your higher ups, you couldn't say that because then you would get canned. And so no one learned, because no one said, oh, you know what? We're not fighting this war the right way. We're not fighting. We're not doing this. And so because no one learned, everyone, body count was a perfect example. on the ground in order to make sure you kept your job. You had to say that you had, say, oh, we had 10 killed. And then the person who he reported that to, he had to say that he had 15 killed to that guy, to his higher up, so that he could look good. And then he said 20. And then he said, 100. Sometimes he would jump up incredible numbers. And so the president's sitting there just going, I guess we're winning the war. Oh my God, and then they're making decisions based on that. Right. So no one finds out how it actually is. Do you know doctors who have made that admission of mistakes, whether it be in COVID or not?
Well, I mean, I think I've made mistakes. I think it's important that exactly what you're saying. One of the hardest things I think for doctors to do is to admit that they made a mistake because people's lives are in their hands. It's very different than, I don't know, an accounting mistake. It's obviously financial lives are very important too, but it's a very different mistake when somebody dies because of a mistake that you make directly versus, they have some financial recovery to do. And we all have mistakes like that where we've made bigger mistakes or mistakes with bigger effects than others. And it's tough because I think we live in a world right now that's really bereft of compassion. And I think that there's a lot of hate and there's a lot of blame and there's a lot of fear. And in my experience and not everybody on this show knows what I've gone through, but through earning my medical license, doing it the way that I did it, even though, getting the credentials, I chose to do some things to stand for women in another group. And there were people that came after me, came after my medical license, came after my friends, and there's been a legal battle. There's been all sorts of defamation campaign and things like that. And it's been very interesting for me to experience the legal system in this way too, because nobody wants to admit that they committed a crime or they did something wrong because our system again is so bereft of compassion. It's like we want to pounce on anyone who's done anything wrong, these horrible evil human beings that have committed crimes. Let's kill them. let's
Mhm.
let's annihilate them from existence so we don't have to see them in ourselves. And that's the spiritual, that's the woo woo flowers. But seriously, why else would we want to annihilate another human being from our existence is because we don't want to look at how we could have possibly done, how could we get to a state where we could possibly do what that other human being has chosen to do? What might have happened in their life where that they've gotten to that point, and I think, God, we can't even admit on social media that we were wrong about something, like we're so afraid of everyone jumping on us and dealing with the hate and the backlash. And again, with what I've gone through, I went through a period of time. I do a practice where whenever I make a mistake or I fail, I go to someone and I ask for help to look at why I failed. And it's one of the most humbling practices, and my heart beats fast every time I do it. And I've been doing this for probably 8 years. And I still like the practice of humbling myself to go, you know what? I failed. I made a mistake. Let's look at how I did it. And still, I'm like, wait, I'm doing the same practice for 8 years and I'm still failing once in a while. Like I'm still having failures. It's so humbling to go, like, we're human. We're constantly failing, but what kind of human do I wanna be? Do I wanna be able to admit that I have to fail to learn, or do I wanna pretend that I'm perfect and I don't fail and humans don't fail and anybody who fails must go off this
Right.
planet, go to jail? I
Right.
mean, we just need more compassion, like so much more compassion, in my
Right.
opinion, because people are deathly afraid to admit that they made a mistake, and the only way we learn or grow is to make mistakes. So it's
Right. Can I also add to that, because I know there's a lot of intellectually lazy people who are listening right now. I love hating on my fans. I know there's a lot of intellectually lazy people listening right now, and they're conflating the word compassion with lack of consequence. Right? They're conflating
Oh,
because it's so
yeah.
easy to say
Yeah,
compassion.
so
Right? They're
important.
saying they think by you and I talking about compassion, or at least human understanding of mistakes, they think amnesty.
No.
No, bro. Let me stop your line of thinking right there and say, shit. Breathe. Okay. Because here's the reality. I know, and I've talked about it on this show, I know murderers. I know them. Okay. I got the beautiful privilege of doing volunteer work inside of prisons for years.
Wow.
And I know people who have done the worst things you can do. And I've watched them clean their lives up, and I've watched them change, and I've watched them give back, and I've watched them help others, and I've watched them be altruistic and free internally inside a prison, freer than some of the motherfuckers I know outside
Ooh,
of prison.
chills, chills. Yes, that path back.
But do I think they deserve to be out of prison? No. Sometimes, no. Some of them have earned their way out. They've done their time. But some of them have not. And I'll take it again, because this is complicated what I'm trying to piece apart here. I'm also talking about if they've intentionally ended the life of another.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a sticky situation, an understatement. But I'm talking about where along the line have they done their time? I'm not saying that I 100% agree with the prison industrial complex, blah blah blah. But I'm talking about there's a difference between. I mean, even some people who just can't be allowed out around us, right? Have changed their life and made incredible strides internally and externally, and are helping people and prayers and this and that and writing letters and incredible. One of my good friends um ended the life of another human being long time ago. Got sober in prison, stayed sober, started kicking butt and changing his life and being a part of the spiritual group and this and that and helping people. And eventually, after a long, long time, but he got out and hit the streets and immediately started helping people and immediately started like being a part of the spiritual group and immediately started trying to get this together and get, and be a productive member of society, to the point where he became the first firefighter in California to have had 3 strikes on his record, I believe. Like he became the first, like, because the firefighter, he was doing some volunteer work to help these guys learn how to firefight. And the manager's like, "Hey, you should try to do this regularly." And he's like, "No, I have a background." Like, and he's like, "No, you should." He's like, "No, I have like a background. Not like I knocked off of 7-Eleven." He's like, "No, I have a background. And yet he was like, "Okay, God, I'll put in this, I'll try to do it." And he became the first one to do it. And
That's
was
amazing.
fighting fires in California.
That's amazing.
Right. So
Let me ask you this, P. I know you're asking the questions, but let me ask you this because
please.
I love the line that you held. I mean, I know I'm also part of the Dossier Project, which is at dossierproject.com. And one of the things we stand for is accountability. As much as I think compassion is important, the accountability aspect we also think is extremely important. So how do you not let yourself off the hook, not let people off the hook, but still hold the line, but compassionately, continue to let somebody earn their way back into your life, or their way back, or even, I mean, I think the most important thing is that they earn their way back with their own conscience. They
Mm.
earn their own. I mean, if you've taken the life of another person, you're in your own inner hell for a long
Mm-hmm.
time. And how do you find a way back to your own soul? How do you find a way back with yourself? And you mentioned something which was interesting to me, which you said they've earned, there seems to be 2 standards of accountability that you have, and I'm curious. One is the external punishment that we in the courts put on somebody for taking somebody else's life. And then there's this other thing that you describe, which is they earned back. They made amends. They admitted they did something wrong. They felt the pain. They started to do things to help other people. They started to see other. They changed, and actually are now one of the biggest contributors to humanity. Um, do you feel like the external punishment or the prison punishment is still necessary if they have successfully done the internal work to earn a shift in their personality, a shift in their behavior patterns?
It's a complicated question, complicated answer, but I think, unfortunately, not unfortunately, it is what it is. It's an inside job. There's no way to
Right.
measure that. There's no way to measure that because I know guys who have gotten out and continue to do what they were doing before,
Right.
who have earned their way out and look good on paper and said the right things and tap danced, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and then got out and didn't continue or didn't, change, right? There's no way for us to measure it. Again, with any human individuality, micro, macro, and any system, there's going to be mistakes and there's going to be slip ups. What I look at is one of maybe one of the factors is the surrender within the individual in this way. They go in front of the board, right? They go in front of the parole board again. And they believe they've changed. They believe they're doing what they can, but there's a surrender, not that they don't get disappointed if they get turned down, but there's a surrender to like, well, but I earned this. I made this decision and this is where I have to be. The fight of, man, the government and the state and these guys don't understand how great I am. These guys don't understand that. There's a weird little subconscious, unmeasurable switch there. The fulcrum of the surrender, I believe, those are the guys who are successful. Those are the guys who, like I said, even in prison are free because they're like, okay, this is my life now. I'm going to do my best to give back. This is my journey, if you want to say it. And a lot of them aren't, you woo woo. They're more like, I would say the ones I know are more
Realist.
Jesus-y.
Yeah.
Although Jesus-y can get very woo woo too. But I've known a lot of people who, are very much on the like, oh, this is my karmic journey right now. You know what I mean? And there's a surrender fundamentally that happens even without, meditation or whatever. There's a surrender that happens where they're like, okay, this is what I did, and I understand the rules of the game, whether I think it's right or wrong, that I'm not in my I'm not in charge anymore. I've given my power over to the state,
Right. Yeah, it's and the reason I ask is because I do think there's I mean, well, there's 2 things. One, I think there's a lot of false convictions. I'm not even gonna talk about that because I think that's a whole separate thing, but let's
Sure.
just say someone actually did the bad behavior. There's us as a community, as a human team that has to protect society, so to speak, from them hurting other people, so we give them this sentence, we take them away from society. I think we could do a much better job. I mean, I don't think taking somebody who's a hardened individual and putting them in a concrete cell and punishing them and treating them horribly
With a bunch of other hardened criminals.
is like a way to help them find love and
Comma,
compassion.
comma, comma, while some other people are profiting off of it. But anyway, continue.
Exactly, exactly. So I don't think we're doing our best there. I think we could do better. But nonetheless, people still in those cells find their way back to their heart, find their way back to their soul. And like I said, I think the only reason the external separation or punishment is needed is to give them the reality of like, okay, guys, we're a human team. You've done something that really goes against our human code here, or our community code. We got to get back on track. I think we break our human code in the way that we treat criminals and the way that we treat people.
Mm,
I think there needs to be rehab there, but it's like, okay, when do we take away the external consequence if somebody has found the internal thing? And I obviously we'd have to be able to measure, like you said, maybe there's surrender, there's compassion, there's a consistency, there's, like I don't know how we even measure that, but I would love in my lifetime to see a change in the way we handle punishing people. And the criminal system is just an example. But I mean, like you said, I mean, the way we do it on social media, the way we hate on people, the way we
mhm.
punish people. Like, I wish there was a way that if somebody steered away from the path of love or compassion, that we could lovingly and compassionately bring them back, hold them
Right,
accountable in a loving and compassionate way.
right,
But
and
we struggle with that for sure.
we do, and all of us do individually as well. I mean,
Mhm.
like I said earlier, I hopped on social media before I meditated, which isn't the end of the world. It was just something I decided to do, and the consequences, albeit short, but we're like the world, and but um, all of these things we're talking about are symptoms, meaning whether it be, you were talking about, this desire to like get out there and cancel culture and, pounce, pounce. Why does the pounce happen? A lack of self-love. All the patriots who are listening are like just grossed out. What is this hippie bullshit? Lack of working on ourselves. Call it whatever you lack of fear. Fear is the fucking problem. Okay. And it manifests in a lot of different ways. As we've talked about, it manifests with doctors going, I don't know, here's a script. It manifests in get him, get him, get him. It manifests in I'm overcome and I need to do so much drugs and alcohol that my spirit is broken, and I get to the point where I morally make the decision it's okay to murder somebody. Fear. These are all symptoms of the fucking disease. If we do not start to work on, and I don't mean we're not starting to work on it, because I think we're doing great as humans. I mean, as far as progressing, let's just be real. People are like, oh, it's so bad, the world right now. Like, there are people alive right now who had to hide in a basement because Germans were bombing them. Stop. The idea that the world is so bad. Fucking grow up. So and they're doing it now too. Anyway, I'm talking about the disease, not the symptom. The disease is the fear, micro level, macro level,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've had the privilege, I'm going to say it this way, but I've had the privilege of being canceled.
Hmm.
I've had the privilege of being defamed, of losing my reputation, of losing my medical license, of losing my livelihood, of going from making, I don't know, $30,000 a month to $3,000 a month or less, and trying to support myself in this way. And I will say, along this privileged journey that I've had, there were real moments of rage, um, terror, absolute terror, to be a woman who I would say is quite capable. Put myself through medical school, became a doctor, bought my own house, bought my own car. I came from a very modest family, carpenter, bartender. My mom and my dad did great, but it's not like I came from a family of doctors. I was the first to go to college, put myself through medical school. So to build myself to that point and then lose everything, or feel like I won't be hired because of my reputation, or and what I mean, and in my case, I didn't I didn't kill someone. I didn't do something bad. I was made into this story was made up online about what I have done to certain women, that I was committed to helping, and in that process of losing everything, I really had the ability to understand humanity better. Like, I could say I had an intellectual level of compassion for the bad things, the dark side of what humans are capable of. But I've had moments along this journey. I remember being outside of an elevator once in a very posh, like, apartment building, and I had somebody had asked me. It was a close friend of mine that knows my work deeply and knows how I work with people to get them well. And their family member was in a situation where they were maybe close to dying. They asked me to help and see if I could help him survive. And again, I wasn't paying rent at the time. I was fighting legal battles, didn't have money to pay my own rent, so I was living with a friend. And I remember this moment of just feeling like I'm in this beautiful apartment in Manhattan, rooftop, like amazing, $8,000 rent a month. And I just remember thinking, like, there was a moment where I wanted to steal because I didn't have what I wanted to have. Like, I was just I had, no money to buy the clothes that I want. What I was used to being able to afford as a physician was way gone. And I had this real moment of, like, I just want to take this. And I didn't, but, like, I wanted to, and I actually burst into tears because I had never, like, just the desire to want to take it so much. And that's one very meek example, but there's been examples of deep envy and hatred, out of my own insecurity of, like, I want my reputation back. They've got all this stuff. Now I'm this measly little, sex cult brainwashed member that nobody, that my credibility's gone and all of this. And I remember the envy and these feelings that I had never, I, I don't want to say never, but were very far gone before that I had never, and I remember thinking, wow, now I can relate to people in poor environments who look at people in rich environments and go, I just you're the cause of all of my suffering. You are, and I remember thinking how hatred could be developed, how these things could be developed because I could feel the lack of self-esteem. I didn't know if I could overcome this. I thought I'd maybe be poor forever, or I thought maybe I would be hated forever, or shuffled out of our society forever and locked away, scarlet letter. And I felt so scared and so little. And and from those places are where all of the ugly emotions or dark emotions had come from. And without those experiences, I don't think I could ever begin to understand the dark things that humans do and start to go like, oh wow, they're really just hurting right now, and they don't know if they'll ever be able to overcome their circumstance, or they'll ever be lovable, or they'll ever be looked up to or revered, or any of the things that they feel like they need in order to be whole, in order to be something, thank God I have a great group of friends and community that were supportive, but not everybody has that. And I was fortunate to kind of make it to the other side. So, I mean, I know this is maybe a little off topic, but I know
Mm,
the people that may watch your show and all of the like, uh, what is it, conspiracy theorists, and they want to hate the people that are in charge and all of these things. And I think even the people that are in charge, we're all just think of if somebody's that power hungry, where is the little boy in them going like, I must control the whole world to be seen? Like how deeply terrified they must be that they have to have that much control. You know, I never would have had that perspective had I not had this experience. That's for sure.
right, right. There's so much to be said for. I mean, again, that doesn't mean that we don't, you know, try to stop the Charles Schwab, Klaus Schwabs of the world, the Bill Gateses, the whatever.
For sure.
Of course we do.
Mhm.
But what do I always talk about on the show, everybody? Know your enemy. Know your enemy. If we're going to, how's it been working out by just immediately villainizing? And again, I'm not saying they're not villains, but immediately villainizing lazy intellectually, lazy emotionally, to just say, no, they hate, it's not working out the way we're doing it. Let's try understanding so that we can approach not only a solution now, but also to help not make more Klaus Schwabses. Hello, to get your kids off of TikTok so that they don't turn into Bill Gateses. Do you understand what I'm saying, everybody? If we understand the disease instead of trying to wrap our head around symptoms constantly, just like we were talking about with doctors, we
Yep.
can start to lower that disease. We can start to take care of that. You okay to go a little while longer?
Yeah. 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 Got a
Okay,
few more minutes. Mhm.
because man, this is such a good fucking conversation.
Good.
Um, and I've only said fuck like twice. This is crazy. For people who know my show, they're like, what? Um, but okay, so let's talk. Let's start wrapping up in a little bit. But I also want to talk about just the tactile experience of what focus specifically you have when it comes to health, when it comes to how to help ourselves in this game, in this freedom game, blah blah blah, so that we don't need to lean on the institutions that no longer work. What are your focuses, and what do you feel would be the best things for people to focus if they're watching now?
Well, take my courses, obviously.
Of course.
um, no, seriously. I mean, I think the first thing that pops into my mind is critical thinking. It's so important that you question. It's so important that you. I guess let me just say, there's a few principles I think are really important. One, you need to feel. You need to connect to your body. You need to feel. Um, Simple example: when am I hungry? When am I full? I don't just eat when the lunch bell rings. Like that's a one example, a microcosm of a macrocosm. But if you can't feel it, you're shooting from the hip, right? Like I should have 1,200 calories a day. Okay, why? When is your body hungry? When is your body full? If you're tired, do you need as many calories as when you're going? If you work out and you lift legs today, do you need more calories than if you're doing yin yoga? There's It's very important to be connected to reality, to be connected to your body. So you have to feel, you have to measure. You don't measure to follow the numbers and not feel. You measure to continue to get to know reality. Um, so
What do you mean by measure? Like the scale, like
the scale, calories, strength, weights that you're lifting. I mean, I'm using very basic examples, but they relate to reality. If you don't, I treat a patient, right? Or I used to treat a patient, and now I work with a client, and they want to increase the flexibility of their neck. Well, you have to measure how much flexibility they have when you start the exercise, and then come back to neutral, do the exercise. Okay, did it go further? And you have to be precise, and you have to see, because maybe it had no effect, maybe it wasn't effective. There has to be measurement, and there has to be a connection to feeling, and there has to be critical thinking and questioning, like an objective way to continue to learn. Um, I always said as a doctor that if I did my job well, I'd put myself out of a job, because I do believe it's teaching a man how to fish or a woman how to fish, not giving them the fish. I want to teach people how their body works so that in any stage of life, in any circumstance, they can understand what they need to do to be able to support their bodies, excuse me, to be able to support what their body's going through, whatever that might be. So, I mean, I have well-being trainings that teach people the foundational elements of what every body needs to be able to thrive. And they encompass things like um, the stress mastery, understanding the stress mechanism first and foremost, and being able to work with it, master it, so you don't feel like you're a victim of stress, but you understand how you create stress in your body and how you can choose the level of stress you need for the activity that you're doing.
Hmm.
Um, Getting more connected and sensitive to the five senses, so you are connected to this instrument that you live in. It's not you, but you live in it, so you're going to figure out how it works, and sensitizing that instrument is very important. Then there's nutrition. What is food? What's not food? How do we digest? How do we absorb? How do we optimize those sense systems? Then there's detoxification. How do we get rid of the waste? Very simple. Every organ system in our body is made up of cells. All the cells in our body need the same things: nutrients, vitamins, minerals, water, oxygen, all the same things. How do we get the nutrients to the cells? How do we detoxify the wastes and optimize the systems that detoxify the body? Exercise. There's a whole part of that in the curriculum, and how does that work? And again, we do things without thinking, but why are we exercising? What do we want to build in the body? Do we want more stability, balance, coordination, flexibility? Why? Why do we want those things?
Hmm.
Um, it's really understanding deeply, who you are, what you want, why you want it. Um, and then there's emotions, and how our emotional system works, and emotional mastery, because if our emotions are running us, we're not making good decisions, right? If we don't know how to work with our emotions, then certainly we're not upholding our diet, our exercise, our work schedule, our finance, our budget, our relationships. And then there's our thoughts and our beliefs. A lot of times we have experienced things where we don't even believe it's possible to undo our diabetes. It's
Hmm.
genetic. It's genetic. No, no, no. There are many belief systems that, through work and consistency, there's no magic pill. I'm not advertising a magic pill. I'm advertising a very precise, systematic system that helps people understand how their bodies work, that with support and consistent effort, they can overcome diabetes, injuries, prevent knee replacements, hip replacements, um, I mean, all sorts of different health issues because there is a consistent, very reliable, understandable path to be able to earn their way into a different level of function. Um, so that's kind of my well-being training, and then there's Stexy, which is an incredible program to build stability and flexibility physically, emotionally, and in thought, so that you have an experience that you're separate from this thing, and you learn how
Mhm.
to master it and build, the function that you want to. So um, those are the types of things I believe in. Those are the types of things that I have poured my life force into because right now we just, in order for humans to achieve that, to I have had a friend who had Tourette's for 20 years, and according to the medical community, Tourette's is an uncurable neurological condition. Uncurable neurologic condition. They give you medicine to numb the tics so that you don't feel them as much and you don't tick, but that's all they have in conventional medicine. He has learned how to um, relate to those impulses to tick differently and has been able to, over time, build the character and the discipline to not indulge them, and is completely tick free and has been for years. Now, that's something that, had he not broken that belief system that it's possible, like he's been told by the medical community, this is an uncurable neurological condition. You have no control over this. Most people don't even try. Most people don't even try. Now, had he not tried, he never would have been tick free. He's now tick free. Not only that, he's gone on to create a methodology to teach people. He's reproduced this with 12 other people, and now they can help people stop their ticks in less than 2 hours. Some people, not all people. It's independent. It's individual dependent. But if we don't challenge what the medical diagnosis is, or what the label is, or what we think reality is, we don't even try. We don't have the systems in place right now in conventional medicine to support people, to help them challenge their beliefs, lift them up, give them hope, tell them to try. Okay, let's do this. Let's measure. We'll check in every week. I got your back. I got your back. I got your back. My students, I love my students. They are my family, and they have gotten through autoimmune diseases they didn't think they could overcome, understood how they are triggering their own migraine headaches, stopped, I mean, multiple things that I didn't know were possible to stop. Again, I am just the messenger. I'm a doctor and I've studied the body for a long time, but I don't dare say I know what's possible and what's not possible. Here's the system. Let's try. Let's see what we can do. And I created, with the help of other business partners, these systems to help people. I don't know. I guess an alternative way to do medicine, a different way to do medicine, and I think it's better in a lot of ways.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, obviously, yeah, you're getting alarms and stuff. But okay, this is awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate you doing this and being a part of this. Um, you know, the fact that I'll just say this, the fact that having someone, I mean, who knows, similar to what you're talking about, thank God, universe, whatever, that you had the experience of getting canceled. You know what I mean? That, I mean, shit. I mean, some of the worst days of my life, I look back, sometimes months, sometimes years, and I go, oh, thank God I'm not in that relationship, or thank God I'm not doing that anymore. I needed that pain. I needed to be taken out of that system and yet still maintain. I mean, I don't change as a person necessarily, right? Or let me rephrase that. I don't lose the gifts and the interests and the passion that I have, but I get to utilize those. Oh, why is this muscle so strong? Oh, because I already had it and because I already practiced it. And now I get to use it in a more effective, useful way, in a more focused way, without the burdens that were in the system that I used to be in. Am I making sense? I'm saying, who knows what could happen, what could flower out of, oh, I don't have that license anymore. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
Yeah, um, it's true. It's hard. I'm still in the. I think I'm still in the. My arm and my leg have been blown off, and I'm still kind of like slowly dragging myself along the ground. And
absolutely. I'm not trying to be Pollyanna. Fuck them all. But I'm just saying.
And I don't have that as much animosity. I don't have that in the same way. It has shown me how important my mission to help people experience a better existence is, that I'm willing to continue to do that while I'm dragging my leg and my arm behind me, and I'm willing to continue to take the risks I'm taking to do that. So that's cool. Like, it's cool to know myself like that. Um, but shit, I like Hilton Honors points. I like my
Hmm.
Platinum Amex. I like all
Hmm.
the things I had earned,
Hmm.
by the way. I earned.
Hmm. Hmm.
But you know what? I do know that they pale in comparison to me having my group of people that are overcoming the things that they're overcoming, and watching them like burst through things they didn't think were possible to burst through, and just continuing to lift people up in that way. And if I can have that in comparison, that's what I choose.
Fuck fear, everybody. Um, all right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, everybody, for watching and listening. Danielle, please share again where people can find you.
So the Stexy system is at stexy.fit, stexy.fit. Sensia is at Sensia. This is the well-being training, and that's at sensia.life, SENCIA. So notice they're both not at .com. It's .life and .fit. And my website is drdanielleroberts.com. So
Awesome. Yeah, DRDAN. Yeah, thank you so much again. Everybody, wherever you're listening, make sure you subscribe, share, rate, review, spread this love, spread this anti-fear message. Yeah, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much again, Danielle. I'll go ahead and end the recording now. Bye, everybody.
thank you,
Bye.
thank you, thank you.